Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parents. In today's episode, EM tells me I can't use sign language at home because she won't learn it. I was in hospital after surgery and an entitled father left his son at hospital when he had a surgery, then comes back and yells at 3-year-old son who just did a surgery. Here I am again. So in Scotland we had a storm and this entitled mother thinks my umbrella is hers. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. EM tells me I can't use sign language at home because she won't learn it. So I've been told to share this. Not sure if anyone will be interested. This is about my adoptive mother. My adoptive parents are British citizens who moved to my country in the EU. They adopted me actually expecting mental disabilities, but I was just profoundly deaf. You would think that would be easier. So I grow up, I get enrolled in deaf schools or I learn sign language. But my mother decides it's too hard for her to learn sign language, and actually bans me from using it in the house. I had to mime or point at things until I could start writing, upon which I carried around a notebook everywhere. If I did try to sign, I was called disrespectful for not including her in the conversation. In a strange way, this made my written language skills very good, as well as my lip reading skills, which many deaf people have challenges with. It was very difficult and upsetting living with her. My adoptive father was nice, but he just listened to whatever she wanted, so he became a bad parent too. I went to university and limited contacting them. The one time I tried to visit them for the holidays, I returned to a house with a stranger family. My adoptive parents had moved back to Britain without telling me. Who does that? The one time I tried to visit them for the holidays, I returned to a house with a stranger family. Why would they even adopt a child in first place just to treat it this way? Like SRSLY, how much of an asshole does someone have to be to act this way towards their child? Some families adopt for praise/attention from their social/religious group. They use them for appearances but don't really care about the child's best interest. This is how murders are made. Good luck staying sane. On behalf of the sensible people Britain, I am sorry you had to put up with that bullshit. I shudder to think how they would have treated a child with a more debilitating mental disability. I was in hospital after surgery and an entitled father left his son at hospital when he had a surgery, then comes back and yells at 3-year-old son who just did a surgery. This is a true story. Characters: ED equals entitled dad, LB equals little boy, MM equals my mom, MD equals my dad, KN equals kind nurse. So I was in a NMC Royal Hospital in Abu Dhabi for a surgery last year, and it had only been a couple of hours since I had done it, so I was in my hospital room, which was a ward, but the rooms were big and the door was a curtain, so me and my parents could hear things going on outside my room. I was in terrible pain, so I was constantly napping or watching toddlers and tiaras lol. It was a children and teenager ward with kids who did all kids of surgeries. MMMD and me started to hear a child crying so loud, and MM thought he had a throat surgery like I had, and even talking after having that surgery hurt a lot, so she went with MD to go see what was happening because they felt really bad. It happens to be that it was a 3-year-old boy who had just done a tooth extraction surgery and no family members were there for him. If anyone has done a surgery, they will know that you felt very vulnerable after doing it and needed comfort from family members, or at least I felt that way. And plus he was 3. What kind of a parent leaves their toddler at a hospital after surgery? MM and MD are comforting him, so as the nurses are, and then suddenly ED walks in and is shouting at his kid for crying. Like, what sicko would do that to a toddler who has just done surgery, yet alone his own kid? He was also yelling at MM and MD in Arabic. He was being so rude and made it very uncomfortable for me and probably the other patients. The KN was still comforting him as he was yelling at everybody, and that was his last straw. He yelled and yelled at KN and made her cry, and she thought she wasn't good enough. The poor kid was crying and asking for his nanny, and his ED said she is gone, and he was crying like crazy. I felt so bad, and my parents were saying that the nanny he was asking for was probably the only one who loved him. I've commented on many posts saying rich parents in Dubai do care about their kids, but there are some who are ignorant and the nanny ends up as a mum to the poor child. It was really tense and the nurses were crying. I wanted to get up and help, but I couldn't walk or stand up and I didn't want to enter the situation in my wheelchair, so I didn't. The ED left the hospital with his kid still in his gown and with his patient tracker. Like, how much more careless can you get? The nurse who was taking care of me told MM and ND about him and exactly what happened. That's literally it, and recently it has been a year since the incident and I wonder what happens to the poor child, and I hope and pray that loving nanny came back. Thanks for reading, and please place a comment. I would love to read and answer questions. Also, please have that little boy in your prayers and God bless him. My 25-year-old daughter had nose surgery, breathing problems. Once they wheeled her into recovery, they let me back to see her. The minute she saw me, she broke down in tears, and I went over to comfort her. Surgery is scary. You're knocked out while the doctors do stuff to your body, and then you wake up surrounded by strangers, and all the while you're in pain and fuzzy-brained. This poor kid was 3. At that age, it's extra scary. Poor kid. A lot of parents want to leave their kids at the hospital for surgery if it is for something minor and an outpatient procedure. I live in the US and my mom is a now retired pediatric surgical nurse. They had a policy in place where at least one parent/guardian had to stay at the hospital while the child was in surgery, because things can go wrong, and the child might need to be transferred to the main hospital campus. That worked for a while, but when a new Nordstrom outlet opened near their facility, they had parents leaving to go shopping while their child was in surgery. This resulted in a rule change to mandatory valet parking for surgical patients. You refuse to hand over your keys to the valet, then the surgery would be cancelled and rescheduled at the main campus because they didn't trust you to bring 2 cars, park one with the valet, and then take the second car to go shopping. Where I'm from, all minors under the age of 18 must be accompanied by a parent or guardian the entire time they are in the hospital. When my son was 10, he had an appendectomy and was in the hospital for 7 days. The hospital even fed his father because they didn't want him leaving his son's side. Yes, they had food for the parents for free, probably for the same reason. Poor kid. I can't imagine. I had a minor procedure yesterday and I needed to be sedated for it. I couldn't wait for the nurses to call my husband from the waiting area because I felt vulnerable even if everyone there was nice. And I'm 37. Poor baby boy. Here I am again. So in Scotland we had a storm and this entitled mother thinks my umbrella is hers. So I was walking home after an exhausting day at work. As I was walking, I had an umbrella. EP comes up, says, "Can I use your umbrella?" I politely declined and she decided to turn into the Hulk, practically the son who looked to be 15. You could tell he was embarrassed by his mother cause his expression. He tried getting his mother to go where they were going. Anyway, after I declined, EP decided to start screaming slurs and anything else insulting I was saying in my mind, all this over an umbrella. After that I walked away. If you're talking about Storm Babe, then an umbrella won't have been any use to either of you. All the flooding and devastation that has been all over every news channel for the past week, people being rescued by the emergency services, some dying while trapped in their cars or being swept away. Your post has been a bit of a tonic. Depends on whereabouts OP is. In Dunfermline, all we got was rain and high winds. We never got floods or folk having to be rescued. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.